This is a long vlog. Take a seat, get some drink, and enjoy it. On the way back from South Carolina, the trip was so long, 7 hours, I read this entire little sip of a book. And I found that epic. Epic in the sense that I've had this book for a while now. This book was published the first printing was 2017. I didn't read this for, let's say, almost a year and a half, if not 2 years. It was just on my bookshelf. And then I decided to take it with me to my destination for my birthday destination. And then the perfect opportunity presented itself. I should be looking at you here. The perfect opportunity presented itself on the way back home in a quiet, almost empty Greyhound bus. That opportunity said, read this book. Read Solace, Writing, Refuge, and LGBTQ Women of Color. This book was filled with so many beautiful voices. They are beautiful, hypnotic voices. Yes, mine is one of them. It seems that, as the back says, what are our strategies for survival, LGBTQ women? Where do we find solace? What are our strategies for survival? Because as our famous writer Audre Lorde said or wrote, we were never meant to survive, yet here we are. Well, in this collection, the women here we tell of our strategies. We speak of how we survive. We survive by loving ourselves. And in some of these stories, the women talk about being hurt by others and then finding that it was a blessing. One woman says that the other woman, her lover, walked away. Why? Because then both of two writers who speak about other women leaving, when those women left, then they were presented with the opportunity to then turn the love that they wanted to give others to themselves. They had to shine that spotlight of love on themselves and learn that from that vantage point, they could then stand up and be whole, healthy, and well within themselves for choosing self-love. Because without self-love, you cannot successfully, wholeheartedly love someone else. Some of the women talked about finding solace in communities. A lesbian teacher was trying to teach tolerance and love in one of her literature classes, where the students were slinging slipshod verses from the Bible. What I cannot stomach is judgment and condemnation supported by slipshod biblical recitations. So here she is trying to teach tolerance and love for everyone, and her students were slinging biblical verses to smash anybody different from themselves. And at the end, she said she just had to hold up her hands and say they will get to the understanding that they get to in their time. And She trusts that we all arrive at the understanding that we need to get to when we get to it. Some spoke of neediness and others coming to them, asking for more and more of themselves as the writers. But they had to also learn to create boundaries, to be healthy within themselves, to seek solace once again within themselves, and also seek solace with others, but then know where to draw that line, to be whole. And in the final analysis, because being whole and loving oneself once again means that you can then love someone else. There are poets in this work, and their powerful words speak of being prepared. And one of the poets speaks of preparing other women in her classes, in her social work classes. But as she's preparing other women, she realizes that everything she's preparing them to survive through or excel in, she herself is surviving. So she's teaching others to swim, but yet she's swimming in the same shark-infested waters. And it just shows that there's such a thin line between the student and the educator. She's more or less teaching them, her students, to jump while she's jumping herself. And one of the verses says, helping students to live their best lives now, see a new path in life, stand in their truth, not to be ashamed of their past. Let no credential or dollar amount be a wedge between you and your folks. Everyone has been somebody's client. No social status is ever safe from need. Beautifully written pieces here in this work. This book, First Bloom, is a collection of 13 intoxicating stories of lesbian love. It is a look at the sweetness of new love. One of the stories is by a fabulous writer. I love her. She is Cherie Greer, and she is writing a prom story in 3 parts. It is absolutely breathtaking. It's a beautiful story of 2 high school girls falling in love. One has a steady boyfriend, and she goes to the prom with him. And at the prom, she meets up with her girls, of course, and others at the prom, hanging out in her class. But in particular, she meets up with another friend that she's falling in love with, and the friend is falling in love with her. When Zaire's friend comes to the prom, she is in a dress, in a body that is enthralling, and it stops the whole prom. And she's solo, and she walks into that prom and takes Zaire's breath away. Later on, Zaire makes an excuse to her boyfriend that she has to go home early, that they can't go out and get a hotel room like some of the other kids. That her mom, hey, it's made the stipulation. And then she goes home, changes, and goes over to the other girl's house. The story is beautiful. I absolutely love Fiona Zed. Cecily and the boy is just plain hypnotic. Cecily is a brown flapper girl from money. Her father traveling in Europe, her mother white, left behind, having a good time. Cecily is biracial, so she is Cecily. wild, happy, free, beautiful, doing her thing, falling in love. And you just have to read it. You just have to read it for yourself to know who Fiona Zed really is. Eternity Phillips, in her story about one woman falling in love with Sandra on the job because Sandra knows her way around certain machinery and is business and official, is the woman's trainer when she enters the job. And even though Sandra is 10 years from this woman's age, the protagonist finds herself falling inextricably in love with Sandra. I love Eternity Phillips's writing. Oh my goodness, there are so many amazing women in this book. I love Monique B.T. Thomas and Days Gone By. In that work, two women have loved each other for years and years, and then one develops Alzheimer's and she cannot remember her mate, but her mate remains with her and takes care of her. It is a story you will read and cannot forget, and the name Days Gone By captures the story's theme and essence beautifully, because these lovers had had many days of love that went by, but yet there are moments when the one who is ill remembers who her significant other is, and the love sweeps in on her until she forgets again. I loved 17 Questions by Janine Haley. I loved all of these pieces, all of them. But 17 Questions intrigued me about falling in love with 36 questions from an article from the New York Times. And the characters in this story are talking about 17 questions that one of the characters answers about. And these questions reveal more about herself and how she loves the woman she loves. It's just so beautifully done. And it gave me ideas of what I want to do with a social media project, either on Facebook or Instagram. 17 Questions. Oh boy. And it opens with the author saying that if she could spend, because one of the questions is, if you could spend time on a date or be with someone, anyone from history, who would it be? From present day? And the character in the story says, Halle Berry. So it starts from there. It is such a good story. Oh my gosh, I loved her answers, Janine Haley. And then of course, at the end is my story, Jackpot. But anyway, it's the story of a girl who falls in love with another girl that she has been loving from a distance for so long. Even though it's been from a distance, they talk on the phone, is all they do. But yet, this girl's words and what she says seeps into my protagonist's mind and her soul, and she falls deeper and deeper down the rabbit hole of love with this girl. So eventually the girl's best friend, the woman's best friend, hooks them up if they're out one night at a party. And it's history from there, because the connection is what they need to bring them together, to experience their explosive attraction to one another. I loved writing it. And I call it Jackpot because the main character actually gets what she wants, finally. Because I wanted to remind myself and others that where we focus our energy, we can't have what we want. Sometimes, most times, we can have what we want if we believe it deeply enough. I don't know. I believe that. Even now, I believe it. Tonight, her monologue is an aphrodisiac as potent as gin, and the undeniable effect of her voice on my nerve endings drives me insane, slowly, bringing me face to face with an irrevocable truth. This woman does it for me. Every word burns me with a yearning for her touch. I am hopeless, and I'm certain she knows it. I hope you've enjoyed it, but bye, loves. See you next time. Bye. Love you. And I do love long vlogs.